Hi kids, George Booth here for what was supposed to be the Dr. Bob show. However, after skimming around on YouTube, I found out there are just way too many Dr. Bobs. So I'm going with the title of my first book, Wet Dogs Can't Fly, one of a three book group of wet animals, the second one being Wet Cats Can't Golf. The third one, which will be out the 1st of December, is Wet Raccoons Can't Fly. Lots of silly idiot things and lots of stories from my bizarre family, like my, is that my telephone again? That could very well be true. But anyway, that's the story. So we're Wet Dogs Can't Fly, but I'm still going to be talking about Dr. Bob as time goes on. So with that, we'll end for right now. I'll be back in a little bit. Breaking news, this just in, the cancel culture is coming for millennials, and you'll want to get skinny jeans on this newly nixed fashion trend. According to Gen Z, skinny jeans are now officially over. The trend was called out on TikTok with videos condemning the body-hugging pants and calling for their prompt removal from all closets in some very dramatic ways. The next trend is expected to be no pants. I found my first dead guy when I was 6, maybe 6.5 tops. Our house was about 30 feet from the next house. We could see the neighbor's house through our side kitchen window, and in particular, their side door. There were sidewalks along the sides of each house and a 4-foot-high hedge running between the two sidewalks. On a really nice Saturday morning, I head out to play after receiving my daily dose of cod liver oil. My two sisters were quite a bit older, so I became the experimental child for all health crazes my mother read about on Reader's Digest. I'll tell you about the carrots in a second. That's assuming I remember. But my sisters insisted that I turned orange from too many carrots. So anyway, I go out our back door and walk between the two houses to a small break in the hedge. By now I'm on the neighbor's side of the hedge, and I see Mr. Morris laying down on the sidewalk halfway between his house and his garage. My initial reaction was fairly matter-of-fact. Oh geez, he's lying on the sidewalk. I walk over and touch his shoulder and try to wake him. He's really solid. Holy cats, this guy's dead. I immediately started working my 6-year-old emergency checklist. Mom! I start back to our house and pause by the neighbor's side door, realizing, as any veteran 6.5-year-old would, that I probably should check in with Mrs. Morris, as Mr. Morris probably shouldn't remain on the sidewalk as a semi-permanent thing. I knock on the door, and nice old lady Mrs. Morris appears. She says, "Good morning," in a sweet voice, to which I say, "I think Mr. Morris is dead," and point at the corpse down the sidewalk. Mrs. Morris instantly starts shrieking and steps out of the house a step or two, a complete hysteric. At the exact moment my mother looks up from the kitchen, the breakfast dishes, and sees Mrs. Morris screaming. But because of the hedge, my mother can't see me or the dearly departed. Within seconds, another neighbor lady shows up, and the din grows, sort of like an Iranian funeral. My mother joins the chorus and shouts for my father, reading the paper in the other room, my bipolar father. Father quickly becomes enraged. Remember, he and my mother really have no idea what's going on over the side of the hedge. As the cacophony reached a fever pitch, my own 6.5-year-old self walks back into our house. My parents turn in unison to me, and I take a breath as I announce the passing of our dear neighbor. That was the first time they'd heard of it, and I can't imagine what horrors were running through their minds. Christ, what happened? Go to your room, mister. I'll deal with you later. I might as well have been standing there with a smoking gun in my hand that I'd just pulled out of my Roy Rogers holster. Talk about shooting the messenger. I head upstairs to my room, which happened to be above the kitchen, so I had a bird's eye view of all of the developing event, or should I say breaking news. The police arrived in this black and white van, back then the equivalent of a Chevy Suburban. Mr. Morris had a massive coronary. The police responded, of course, and back then no effort was made to resuscitate him. Ambulances were for patient transport, not for treatment. Lesson: never report a dead guy. Nascar is a bloody waste of time. Hear me out on this one. What happened to the mud, the blood, and the beer? It's supposed to be a race, not a goddamn marathon of 200 left-hand turns. How about 5 laps for $1 million? Now that would be a fucking race. No time to see how the field develops. Just punch it and screw the brakes. Would there be dirty tricks? Exactly. Deliberately running into the other guy? Indeed. That's what we came here for, right? Okay, so 5 laps is too short. How about 10? Let's return to the good old days of crazy-ass mothers tearing it up. None of this pansy-ass bullshit. Just tough, balls-out, redneck, beer-drinking animals going for guts and glory. I rest my case. Why the weather people can all go straight to hell? It's because they are operating in an altered reality. It's how they present their, quote, facts that bothers me. First, don't show me a map with different temperatures from 40 different places, and then stand there and read them to me individually. Most of us can read. It's like PowerPoint. Follow along as we all read together. Besides that, you're standing in front of the damn map. Second, I shouldn't have to even see the weather person. All those stations of late have hired lots of weather bunnies to relay the forecast wearing skimpy cocktail dresses at 5 in the morning. The maps and graphs are all pretty understandable, and I really don't need you to stand there and point. Third, spare me the science class. What I need to know is what's the weather going to be for the next several days. I don't feel I need to know why it's going to rain, just that it's going to rain.
Chapter 2. The Engineers. My best friend in high school was Greg, godfather to my oldest and best man at the first of my several marriages. Greg was clever and devious, with the innate ability to talk anyone into doing exactly the opposite of their long-standing convictions or moral beliefs. He retired after decades of, you guessed it, selling cars. In the end, we were pretty close, and he was one of the funniest people I have ever known. He referred to the shower as the box, the bed as the basket, feet were wheels, and eyes were peepers. If you were blind, you had bum peepers. Greg was always in a situation. In fact, his entire life could be described as an endless stream of situations. He dealt with them nonchalantly, in the moment, with no particular plan in mind. He forgot stuff, like his preschool-age daughter's birthday. So, we were out drinking, and only half in the bag when he said, "Come on, we gotta go." What the fuck? Now what? This was the beginning of another situation. I should have seen it coming. He quickly drove us to a suburban housing project, stopped the car, jumped out, and ordered me to follow. I'd never even been to this place, so I had no clue what the hell was going on. Next came what could only be described as a stupid and tragic event. Greg banged on the door, and his ex answered the door. She was not happy. Not that it matters, but she later moved to Nebraska, married a farmer, and started walking with Jesus. The next to arrive at the door was his daughter. Greg gave his now bewildered daughter cash, a $5 and a bunch of rumpled ones out of his pocket. He implored me to add additional funds to her gift. It was such a disaster. I couldn't wait to escape. Greg tells me that as an adult, she's fine with him, and they see each other on a regular basis, including his granddaughter. As small-town teenagers, Greg and I were often bored and always in search of some activity involving cars, driving, not fixing, alcohol, and a desire to be around girls. As far as girls are concerned, we were a couple of bumbling clowns. That's not to say we didn't have girlfriends. We did. There was no sex involved in any of this. Sex was merely a word. That's not to say there wasn't plenty of desire for it, but acting upon it would have been a whole other proposition. Our larger friend group was a cabal we called the Engineers. To this day, I have no clue where that came from. We were just a loosely connected group of 6 or 7 people, 5 of which formed the core. Cast. Greg. Shortest. Once after school, in his bedroom, he said, "Check this out." He then pulled his pants and underwear down, grabbed a lighter, and lit a fart. Me. Brilliant, top athlete, deep sea diver, mountain climber, notary, gifted author, big Zorro fan. Mike. Tall, lanky, great laugh, prone to violence, liked to punch other members, then would cry and give out hugs, tried to get in bed wearing water skis. Brad. Tallest, quiet type, go-with-the-flow guy, threw up into a bucket from a top bunk one night. John. Group intellectual, actually played an instrument. Malt liquor made him surrender all his sensibilities. Rich. Rotund, club feet, super funny. Steve. Short, club hand and club foot. Brad the second. Pilot, ladies' man. Chet. Photographer, nerd and pretty fine drummer. Bill. Fullback build and tall, mechanic, hapless, official engineer driver, not much of a drinker. Associate members. In terms of being a gang, we were pretty inept. We thought we were just short of being super cool, although being cool had no basis in reality. We did not play sports or any organized school activity. We were best described as class clowns. We were not dorks, however, as we frequently ran with the beautiful people. We never engaged in violence, and if there was a fight somewhere, you could count on us being the first ones out the door. These things were our bond. Oh, and we drank a lot. BBB, bound by beer. Cruising our silly town, population 1,200. Sorry, that's a repeat, but an important detail. There will be a quiz at the very end. One night, we decided to check out the construction of the new Lutheran church. No idea why. As always, I played Greg's perfect dupe and should have known that my dangerous best pal was up to something. My relationship with Greg was straight out of Ferris Bueller, and I was the one being constantly manipulated by Ferris. Upon arrival at the church, he dared me to climb the temporary bell tower. Once I got to the top, he proceeded to ring the bell. Huh? What was that? The police were summoned, but once they realized who they were dealing with, we were shooed away home. Greg's father was the local justice of the peace.